If you've been following this channel for a while, you know that I'm a sports card hobbyist who lives in China. In this video, I'm gonna go through some of the nuances of what it's like to be a card collector in China. Some of the things that are kind of similar, but there's also some unique challenges, unique opportunities. In this video, I'm just gonna kind of share my own story of how I got connected into collecting cards here again, and then, you know, kind of what I've learned through my experience here and what's similar, what's different, collecting here and collecting elsewhere. So let's get into this. Now, first off, I want to mention that my experience being a card collector here is not the same as what everybody else's experience is going to be necessarily. I don't live in one of the major cities in China. If you live in Shanghai or something, I'm sure your experience with being a sports card hobbyist is going to be different than mine. I live in kind of a smaller city, quite far away from the large eastern city. So, you know, it's a very unique experience. In fact, I'm living in a small village right now. Maybe I can show some footage of where I'm living as I do this video here and there. So my experience is going to be unique and different than a lot of other people's. But let's get into this. Now, I thought it would be nice to start this off to kind of share how I first got into collecting sports cards in China. When I was a kid growing up in Oregon, I was crazy about sports cards, basketball in particular. Playing basketball and collecting basketball cards were two of the biggest, most constant elements in my life. I would come home from school and I would either grab a basketball and go shoot around, or I would go home and organize my cards or call up a friend and then come over and we'd trade cards or whatever. Playing basketball and doing stuff with my basketball card collection was like a daily occurrence, a daily thing in my life. I think I mentioned in a video once before that actually when I was in middle school, I think I started when I was maybe in 7th grade, or yeah, I think 7th grade. I got a paper route, 7 days a week paper route, specifically so I would have money to pay for basketball cards. Now, thinking back on this is a little crazy because 7 days a week I was waking up before 6 o'clock in the morning to get a monthly paycheck of $120 a month. That's crazy. I would never do that now for $120. Crazy to think about. But at that time, I was so dedicated to wanting a sports card collection that I forced myself to wake up before the sun rose every single day of the week. Rain, sun, snow, whatever. Not sun, because it was before the sun rose. But it was dedication, and it was not because I wanted money. It was not because I wanted to have a good experience and to grow as a human being. It was because I wanted basketball cards, and this is how I could do it. And with the money I got from that, 90 to 99% of it went straight to basketball cards. I mean, maybe I bought like a Snickers bar every once in a while or something. I can't remember. Maybe I used some money every once in a while to go watch a movie with some friends or something like that. But most of it, let's say 90% of it, went straight into sports cards. But as perhaps happened to a lot of us, eventually I started to kind of drift away from the hobby. I can kind of remember when that was happening. You know, I remember in 95, 96, 96, 97, I was starting to buy more cards. And I wasn't like only focused on the value, though the value was part of it. And I just kept getting these boxes that were like the most valuable card I was getting was like $1.50, and I wasn't getting any of my PC guys. It happened like several times in a row. It was just like, this is getting annoying. I'm waking up at like super early in the morning every day and I'm getting nothing. And at that time, it wasn't even in my mind at that point when I was a kid to buy single cards like the card I wanted. That didn't even cross my mind. I was only buying packs and boxes. So by the time, you know, the last couple years of high school, I wasn't really, maybe every once in a while if I happened to find myself near a local sports card shop, I would buy a pack or something. But at that point I had stopped my paper route. I'd still do some side jobs here and there. So I had a little bit of money, but I wasn't really worried about spending it on sports cards, and so I kind of faded away from the hobby. And then that stayed that way. You know, I had a whole life in between. You know, I went to college. I had all these different experiences. And then I ended up moving to China, and still at this point I'm not into cards or anything, but I'm moving to China. Now, when I first moved to China, my plan was just to have a 1-year experience, to come here. I thought, you know, it was shortly about 2 years after I had graduated from college, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go have this experience. So it was for 1 year, so I went over, got a job teaching English, and taught English for a year. Now, during that first year, I ended up getting connected into an organization that was doing kind of more rural development work, and it was really fascinating to me, so I got connected with there, and then I kind of expected my 1-year experience to grow into a 2-year experience, but that was all I was thinking at that time. Then I met my wife. And now I'm still here. It's now been, I don't even know, it's been so long. So now here I am living, have two young kids. My kids are 8 and 11, and we've been living here the whole time. So, and that whole time I never even, sports cards for years never really crossed my mind again until. So about 3 years ago, we moved to my wife's hometown. Now, we thought we came here and we were thinking, okay, this is a unique experience. Our kids were 5 and 8 at the time, and we're like, okay, let's dedicate a block of their young life and of our time to homeschool and to living in the place kind of a little bit more removed from the big materialistic cities, a little bit more connected with nature, to some of the kind of the culture, a deeper sense of culture with their mom's cultural roots. Let's have this experience. It would be really valuable for the kids, and it would be great for our family. So we decided to move to my wife's hometown, and we started a small English language school. We had a lot of experience with education, so we thought we would start our own business. And that's what we did. So we started a business, and this was kind of the vision we had. And the other thing that was nice when we first moved here is actually my parents and my brother also moved here. They were planning on being here for 6 months. Actually, they were going to be here for 6 months out of every 12 months. They were planning on coming back, but because of COVID, that's kind of, that can't happen. But they were here for the first 6 months. So for those 6 months, they helped out a lot with homeschooling while my wife and I were getting the business going. And we got it going. Actually, it was quite nice. Got it going faster than I expected. And then it continued, and it was going really, really well. Then COVID struck. Oh man, and that was annoying. So first of all, my parents and my brother ended up going back to the US a little earlier than they were originally planning, because they could see, we're afraid we're gonna get stuck here. Let's go. So they left. They've never been able to return. Travel restrictions and everything. And also because of that, I've never been able to go back to the US since all this stuff happened. Part of our plan when we originally were coming here, planned it in with the budget and with the time where we could also go back to the US for 2 months every summer. We had worked all this out, and it was like, okay, that's perfect. My parents will be there for 6 months, and we'll be back in the US for 2 months, and maybe we can do some of the homeschooling there. We'll only have 4 months out of the year. Well, it's just my wife and I doing homeschooling, and then we'll have this job that's only on the weekends. It's like, this all sounds so perfect. But then because of COVID, everything changed. So when COVID first struck, of course, for our business, it was really tough. We had to close for about 6 months, or maybe even 8 months. I can't remember exactly now, but we couldn't run any of our classes. Luckily, we're in a place where the cost of living is just unbelievably low. I mean, we had bought an apartment here many years ago, maybe 10 years ago, that, we weren't living in this city, but we were renting it out to other people. And by the time we had moved back here to my wife's hometown, we had already paid off the apartment. So we didn't have any housing cost. And the rest of the cost of living in this town, in a small town in kind of semi-rural China, is extremely cheap. It's not hard. As long as you don't need Western food, and you can live kind of a little bit like the locals live, which generally, I mean, we get pizza every once in a while, but other than the occasional thing to quench my hunger for something Western, generally it's not too hard to just live a normal life like the locals would live a normal life, which is extremely cheap. Like, it'd be hard for me to emphasize how cheap it really is. It's quite amazing. But, as one of the reasons we had made this plan to go back to the US for 2 months every year is, I know from my experience living in my wife's hometown before, and we had before the kids were born, and when the kids were first born, we had lived here. I know from my experience here that I can get a little homesick being this kind of remote. That's why we had built it into the plan to go back to the US, and not being able to go back to the US after a little bit, I was getting really homesick. And my parents and my brother had left, and it was just my wife and I doing the homeschooling and this business that we had just started. And I was like, man, I just need to get back to the US. I was just homesick. And then I had a conversation with my parents one time on the phone, and my mom mentioned that she had found my box of sports cards from before, and she was just asking, if they wanted me to do anything with those cards or what, and I was just like, oh no, just leave them in storage. I'll do something with them whenever I move back to the States. That'll be a lot of fun. And so, but that got me thinking about sports cards again, and I was kind of like, wow, I used to love that like crazy when I was a kid, and I haven't even thought about it for so long. I want to go buy a couple of packs. So I went online to there's a big Chinese, it's kind of like the Chinese Amazon, it's called Taobao. I went on there and did some searching and saw if I could find any packs of cards to buy. I hadn't looked for cards in a long time, so I went and I found them. I found some. I found a number of them, actually. I was surprised when I started looking. I was like, whoa, there's so many places that I can buy packs of cards. That's amazing. I'd never crossed my mind that this might be a hobby that was in China as well. So I went ahead and I bought 2 packs, just the cheapest packs I could buy. I bought a pack of Contenders basketball and a pack of Chronicles basketball. Like literally the 2 cheapest packs you could buy. I wasn't looking for something valuable. I just had this deep desire to have some experience from my childhood. And I know, reflecting back on it, it was completely out of homesickness. I just wanted to have some kind of connection back to my hometown. And I couldn't think of anything at that moment that would do that more than sports cards. So I went ahead and bought a couple of packs of sports cards. And when they came, when I opened them, there was something about that first experience reopening those 2 packs. There's like this flood of kind of memories of all this joy that I used to have from this experience from when I was a kid. It just washed over me. It was overwhelming. I was just struck by wow, this was like a major part of my childhood. All these memories came flooding. I remember even the smell of the cards. I was like, this smell is familiar. This smell gives me a nice feeling. Everything about it was really, I guess this is nostalgia. I guess that's what nostalgia is, but it was so nostalgic for me to a degree that I don't think I've experienced with other things. And that was the spark. So from that moment, I was just like, I want to find out more. What's been going on with this? So I just started going down the sports card rabbit hole. I was just, every free moment, I was reading articles. I was looking at this video and that video, and I was just, digging deep into it. And I was just like, wow, there's so much. There's been so much going on. This is so fun. And one thing that's true about my character is once I start getting into something, I don't just dabble. I kind of go deep if I'm really truly interested in it. I might dabble in a little thing here, a little thing there. But then once I find something that I know I'm really all about, I go deep. It's happened with a lot of different things in life. And so that's kind of what happened with sports cards. Those 2 packs were like my catalyst, the spark, combined with that nostalgia and everything, were the spark for me wanting to dig in much, much deeper. So at the beginning, I was looking, I continued to look on Taobao. I was looking for packs, but I was like, oh man, these packs are also expensive. Let me go and see what I can find as far as single cards and see if I can find some cards that I'd really like to collect, because I could tell that I wasn't gonna be able to have a collection just building up packs. Those packs that I'd opened, they were a lot of fun, but there was nothing valuable. I think the most valuable card I had was like a LeBron James base card from Contenders or something. It was super cheap, and so I knew, and I remembered from my childhood also that if you just buy cheap packs, you're mostly gonna get garbage. So garbage is fun too. I actually enjoy the garbage, but I realized if I was gonna really collect a little bit more, I wanted to see what some single cards out there and find a handful of cards that I really wanted. So I went and I looked on Taobao and I found a number of them. And I was looking at the prices and I was comparing them to eBay, and they were, at that point, when I was looking, they were pretty similar. I was like, okay, I'll buy a few. So I bought a few. The first one I bought was actually a PSA 10 Damian Lillard rookie. It was the scorer's insert from the Panini Brilliant set from 12-13, and that was the very first card I bought, and I bought it for pretty close to what it would have gone on eBay. At that point, I just like, oh, it's selling on eBay, it's selling on Taobao, similar price. Okay, I'll get that one. That would be a Damian Lillard good first single card for me to buy. He's my favorite player. He plays for the team in Oregon. I'm from Oregon. He's my favorite player. So I went for that, and I bought a few other single cards that I found here and there. I was like, okay, in general, this is fun, but I'm probably not going to do this too much. The cards are a little expensive. I'll get a few, and then that'll be fun. But as I was continued to do that, I was enjoying it. When I got the card, I was just like, this is so fun. I wish I had more funds to do this more. Now, living, in kind of a rural part of China, my salary is not high. Like I was saying, the cost of living is so low, so I don't need to make much money to live a very comfortable life where I'm living. But sports cards are expensive. So I was like, gosh, if I'm going to do this more, this needs to be able to generate an income for me as well. If I can make money from this, then I can put money into this. So then it got me kind of exploring, what are some other ways? What are some things I could do? When I was a kid, I didn't really make any money from my sports cards. That wasn't even on my mind. But I was like, I think there's ways. And as I dug deeper and deeper and deeper into possibilities, and I started to really explore what is the reality of the sports card marketplace in China. And that's when I found card hobby. And that sparked off a whole new path. Because, before my experience for several months, I thought that the sports card hobby was maybe if you went to Shanghai, I discovered, there was a sports card shop there, and maybe some little sports card shop in a couple of other big cities. Otherwise, I thought, okay, Taobao, what else is there going to be? But when I found Card Hobby, which is a website and an app, which is kind of, I guess you could call it the eBay of China for sports cards, it was amazing. It was a revolution for me because there was thousands of cards daily for auction on that site. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. I have found my happy place.
Your happy place.
Now, at this point, we had recently moved away from our apartment, and we had moved to a village, and we had chosen to move to this village here mostly for our kids. So we had some farming space. We had some space for them to run around, raise chickens, this kind of stuff. And at this point, our business was back up and running regularly and was doing fine. Everything was going well, and I even had a side job that was bringing in a little bit of supplemental income, and so everything was going all right. And I was like, okay, with this supplemental income, I could bankroll myself a little bit of a collection. So I went into the card hobby when I had discovered it, and I started bidding on some cards that I wanted. And I was really surprised in the first batch of bidding that I had won a whole bunch of cards for about half, some of them less than half of their eBay comps. And I was just like, whoa, like I got all these cards in the mail. I was like, I paid really low for this stuff. Why is this so cheap? So, I started to do this a little bit more, and I was like, and then gradually I was learning like what kind of cards were going more. I realized like if I was bidding on a Michael Jordan card, if I was bidding on a Kobe Bryant card, I would never win the bids. I would be bidding something close to eBay comps, and I would never win. But for a lot of the other cards, I was winning the bids again and again. And I was just like, this is something else. So that got me to really continue to see, okay, something's here. I can do something with this. I can make something. I can make some profit here. So that's when I was like, okay, ComC. I knew about ComC. I had started using ComC a little bit during the beginning part of this journey as well. I was like, ComC, I think I could sell my cards on ComC. And then I looked a little bit more. I found StarStock as well. So then I started to buy up more and more cards, and I would send them to ComC and StarStock. And this was working great. This is still working great. And so, that's continued. From the time I kind of discovered this, I've certainly learned what cards I'm looking for myself, what cards I'm looking to buy that I can sell better. Cause I've learned more about what cards to aim for and what cards sell for cheaper here that sell for more there. Like for example, anything that's an Asia exclusive parallel usually goes for quite a bit cheaper here than it does in the US. Some of the dragon scales from Prism, some of the red flood, yellow flood, green flood from Obsidian recently in basketball. A number of things, they're more common in the Chinese market because they're in Asia exclusive products, which is pretty much the only products that you'll find here for the most part. And they'll go for a lot more there. So, I've learned how to aim a little bit more and certain players or, there's certain things that I'm just finding that finding good deals on. And I've been learning about those. So that's what I'm continuing to do, continuing to learn that and buy cards for my own collection, buy cards to sell on ComC. All right, now let's look at it. That's kind of my long story. That was much longer than I was expecting it to be, but it's kind of fun to tell anyway. So what are some of the other things that are different about, being a sports card hobbyist in the US and being a sports card hobbyist in China? Now, for one, I've never actually seen or been to a local card shop or a card show in China. So that's one big difference. It's not that they're completely absent. In fact, there's a very large sports card shop in Shanghai that I've seen pictures of and videos of people going around. And I think there's other small ones, kind of like, not big ones, because you don't have like walk-in traffic at local card shops. The few that would exist, but the ones that do exist, other than one or two large ones, are going to be just tiny things in a hidden little corner that somebody rents a space for, and the only other people who know about it are other collectors who might gather there at a certain specific time to trade or to buy some products or to whatever, do some sports card stuff. But most of the time it's going to be really small, and even those small things are only going to be in the biggest cities. Outside of the biggest cities, you probably just won't find anything. In my town, I am the sports card community. Hi, I'm the sports card community in my town. Me only. Now, as far as card shows, before all the COVID stuff was going on, there was at least one quite sizable annual card show that was going on for a couple of years. Since COVID's happened, in China, there's none of these kind of larger scale enclosed space kind of events going on. Those haven't started back up, and they probably won't start back up again until the pandemic is fully and completely on a global scale kind of finished. China's about as careful as it gets when it comes to the global pandemic. So for the most part, participating in the sports card hobby is an online thing for me here, especially where I'm living. But online, it's not like this hidden thing. Online, once you learn about it, once you know about it, once you're looking for it, it's quite large. I was really surprised. The card hobby website and app is really what showed me how large this was. And in there's just a lot going on. And that's where I've also, through some of the people that I had originally bought some cards from, I was finding there was a handful of people, especially once I started buying some baseball and football, because there's so few people who are collecting baseball and football. Then once I was collecting baseball and football, I ended up kind of communicating a bit with some of those people who were selling those cards, because it's unique. I found that most of them spoke English, and the basketball cards are the vast majority of the cards, and that's like everybody. But football and baseball is some unique people who are in that space. So I got to know a few people, and I've made a few friends through that space where we can kind of talk shop a little bit, which is fun. So it's kind of connected me into at least a couple people, giving me a little bit of a sense of that community feel that I used to enjoy about sports cards when I was a kid. Because when I was a kid, I think that I had a friendship with the local sports card shop owner, and me and my friends, we would like sports cards was a big part of our kind of hangout time. So it was part of the community aspect was something I really loved. So and I have a couple of people to chat with who also live in China. It kind of has that same feeling to me, which is nice. So I found a couple of those people online. Actually, one of the people that I met, that I've been communicating with back and forth, is really interesting. He has this idea. He really wants to start his own business, sports card business, and he wants to work with me where, when I move back to the States in particular, which we're planning on doing about a year from now, where he wants to send me like Asia exclusive products that I can break or sell in the US, and he wants me to send him products that are harder to find in China and that he can break and sell here. Or we were also thinking like a kind of a shared consignment thing, like he gathers up a bunch of cards from sellers in China who want to sell stuff in the US. He sends them to me, and I do all the stuff in the US, and then vice versa. If there's anybody in the US who wants to sell their Yao Ming cards or their Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant cards or LeBron James cards, which all tend to go higher in China than they do in the US, then I would send them to him, and he would put them on, and put them on for sale, and we do some kind of consignment thing. Anyway, this is just stuff we've been talking about. But it's fun to think about this. I don't know if anything will come of it, but it's fun to have another person who's interested in this, and to have that kind of like potential of building up something, which is fun. What about different US-based platforms like eBay, for example? Am I still using those kinds of things as a sports card hobbyist living in China? So as I mentioned before, I do use ComC quite a bit, but there's specific reasons why I've chosen ComC. Previously, StarStock as well had some of the same features that I chose on why I chose ComC. Of course, StarStock with the whole fiasco isn't an option anymore, so I'll just focus on ComC. So that one works great for my situation because I can send in a big batch of 300 cards. They get uploaded into their system, and then I don't have to worry about the individual shipping of each card internationally. I don't have to worry about the individual payments on PayPal of each card individually. So when I can ship off 300 cards, then if I average out, I'm only paying 25 cents extra shipping per card or something for the international shipping. Whereas if I was to do it one card, I'd be spending probably $15, $20. Really, for real, it's that expensive, especially because I'm not in one of the big cities, so I have to get stuff sent to the big cities, and then they have to go from there, and I want to do it on a way that's tracked, and it's just expensive, super expensive. So ComC works for me. Now I was using, after I signed up on ComC, I was using eBay for a super short period of time to buy some cards so that I could send them into my ComC account, and then I would sell them on there or hold on to them for myself and for the future or something like that. But I only used it for a very short period of time, and the reason was, I went in, I bid on a bunch of cards. I ended up winning the auction on 2. This is the first time, right after I had set up my account for the very first time. I won 2 cards. There was an Anthony Davis Draft Night PSA 9 rookie, and like a Luka Doncic Chronicles SGC 10 rookie. Not super cheap, but not super expensive cards either. And I had won those, and then I had them shipped to my ComC. And, I paid, everything was good. The positive feedback, I gave the positive feedback. And like literally a day later, I got an email from eBay saying that my account was being closed for suspicious activity on my IP address. Again, I had only used it for, at this point, I don't know, a week and a half, I can't remember, 10 days, something like this. And I got this email, and the email said there was no recourse, I couldn't do anything about it, I wasn't gonna be allowed to open up another account. Like, there was nothing I could do, and there was nothing I could do to even learn what was going on. I was like, what just happened? So that happened, and then literally like 2 days later, I had paid for those same things through my PayPal account. 2 days later, I got something from PayPal saying, oh, suspicious activity on your IP address. We're closing down your PayPal account. You got to get any money you have in your account. You got to get it out of there within like 72 hours or something like that, or else it's gonna be frozen. It's like, what's going on? I still, theirs was the same thing where they said, there's no recourse, there's no appeal, you can't sign up again. It's just like, this is crazy. So in retrospect, I'm pretty sure that it's because either my IP address is in China and they're worried about hackers coming from China, or I don't know, Russia and China always are there's a hacker worry of those two places. So I don't know if that's part of the reason, or I oftentimes use a VPN, so my IP address can look like it's popping around, or like it's going through like some kind of crazy path. So maybe I needed to be more careful when I didn't realize I needed to be careful about that, so maybe I needed to. I tried at the beginning to like get in contact with eBay and PayPal and see if there's something I could do or what was going on. I couldn't even get in contact with anybody. I was like, never mind, I'm gonna figure out how to do this without using those companies. They're so impersonal. They're so like trying to deal with a robot. I don't even want to deal with those. I want to see if I can maneuver this and make this work without using those platforms. And that's why ComC has really worked well for me, because when this happened, I can still officially use eBay if it's a buy it now. I just can't bid on auctions or sell cards, and I can still use PayPal if I'm using my credit card, but I can't receive funds. And not being able to receive funds is a difficult one too, because it also makes it so that I can't use things like my slabs, for example. ComC I can use because I can put money with my credit card into my account, and then I have the money to work with, and then eventually if I want to get money back, I can have it sent by check. When I move back to the States, I plan on doing this. So I'll have them send me a check, and then so that's fine. Otherwise, it's all in ComC credit. With like my slabs is something I would like to use, but it's all through PayPal, so it really wouldn't work, because theoretically I could send my cards to Ship My Cards, which is what my slabs works with, and it's very common for international users to use Ship My Cards, because you can send, just like I do to ComC, I could send a whole bunch of cards and have them stored at Ship My Cards, and then Ship My Cards would send them out to the buyer on my slabs or whatever. But because I can't receive money through PayPal, I just can't. So for the time being, now that Star Stock is no longer an option, ComC is the entirety of my card selling outside of China experience. I'm just learning how to sell a little bit locally in China, but I'm not going to do too much of that just because they tend to sell quite a bit cheaper than they do in the US. So I'm mostly trying to sell outside of China. And without being able to receive money through PayPal because of that whole annoying thing, I also can't participate in things like Facebook groups if I wanted to. I mean, from a distance with international shipping, I probably wouldn't do much of that anyway, unless I was using Ship My Cards. But such is life. It's taught me though, to be so many of these things are so reliant on PayPal. And if PayPal has an issue, then there's so many things you can't participate in. So it's actually given me a little bit to think about as far as, okay, if I'm gonna build something, or even if I wanna move into doing some kind of business thing, there's gonna be unforeseen things because of it being international, and the relationship between China and the US is worse than ever. So there's gonna be additional challenges potentially at customs and things. So it just gets me to think, okay, if I'm trying to do stuff, how do I navigate the challenges of the current way things are structured, and how do I navigate the challenges of not being able to rely on some of the things that are the most common things like PayPal. But in some ways I think it's a good process. I think it's too easy for us to become over reliant on certain things like eBay and PayPal, which if something happens, or if that platform has become something you don't want to use, what do? Like, everything's become so reliant on it. So this has helped me think about all of that kind of stuff a little bit as well, which is useful. All right. All that being said, this became a super long video. I wrote a script, and I was just kind of read it and do some B-roll, but this was kind of more fun, just chatting. So anyway, if I was to summarize what it's like being a hobbyist, a sports card hobbyist in China, I would say that it has its own unique set of opportunities, its own unique set of challenges, but is still super fun. And it's still, you know, the same love that you would experience with it anywhere. I'm definitely experiencing with it here. Yeah, so, but for now, that's the end of this video. Peace.